Γιατί
had to make this change because the first speaker changed for practical reasons. So the first speaker sitting on my left is Dr. Davor Jalto. He has to leave tomorrow, so we made this change, and Mr. Kalaizidis will speak tomorrow. Though, from what we heard from Mr. Kalaizidis yesterday, I think it would be great if we could listen to him right now, right after the Metropolitan of Pergamos, but we had to make this practical arrangement, I'm afraid. My name is Professor Petros Vassiliadis, and it's a great honor for me, and a great joy as well, to see that the Volos Academy of Theological Studies has been working for more than 10 years now and is really at its peak. Personally, I was involved since the beginning, the first steps of the Academy. And I have to say that the director of the Academy and everyone working there, and also with the help of the Metropolitan of Dimitriada, we have created a center of study, a center that is illuminating and witnessing the teachings of Christ, not only in Greece but also around the globe. The time is precisely 6:30, and I would like to present you the first speaker, who initially was supposed to be the chairman of this session. The first speaker, therefore, will be Dr. Davor Jalto, who was born in Bosnia-Herzegovina in 1980. He studied philosophy at the University of Belgrade in Serbia, and he also studied in Freiburg in Germany at the Albert Ludwigs Universität. He currently is working as an assistant professor of history and theory of art at the Faculty of Arts at the University of Niš in Serbia. And he is also the vice president of the Christian Cultural Center in Belgrade. He has published extensively and participated with announced papers in many international conferences and seminars. He has also organized many exhibitions and art projects in Belgrade, Greece, and Germany. I will immediately give the floor to him to speak about nationalism, statism, and orthodoxy. He will speak in English, and that is.
Thank you.
Please, you have.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. It is needless to say that it is my great pleasure and honor to be here today with you, and I owe many thanks to the organizers for this invitation and for gathering us all here these days. First of all, to Pantelis, who is the chief promoter of these meetings. The difficulty of being in the last final session is not only that everybody is tired already, but also that most of the things you wanted to say have already been said. So if you get an impression that you already heard some of the parts of my presentation, don't be surprised. If you also want to take a nap, I don't mind. My intention in this paper is to explore the problem of nationalism from an Orthodox Christian perspective, paying a special attention to the contemporary context and the revival of nationalisms in the post-1989 world. Since this problem involves a variety of other issues that cannot be analyzed in detail here, I will not try to give a systematic overview of all important aspects of the problem. Instead, I'll offer a broader insight into the problem of nationalism today. Before reflecting on nationalism in relation to Christianity and offering an Orthodox Christian approach in particular, I will briefly explain why I think the issue of nationalism in the variety of forms it might take deserves our full attention today. First, however, I'll give a short explanation of what I mean by terms nationalism and statism. Nationalism is a very broad concept. The meaning of the concept and the specific flavor it might have depend not only on the objective content to which the very concept refers, but also on the context in which it appears and on the experience of the social and political life of those who use it. Nationalism, as Selo Baron put it half a century ago, quote, has come to cover an astounding multitude of both sins and virtues, end of quote. Used, for instance, in the post-revolutionary France, it would have borne positive connotations as a concept which referred to the egalitarianism and democracy as opposed to the monarchy and its system of values. Modern nationalism as a political concept of the post-1789 Europe is primarily a secular phenomenon related to the formation of the nation-states in the 19th century. However, these positive meanings that were attached to the concept of nation, nation-state, and nationalism acquired negative connotations in the 20th century, especially after the experience of Nazism and fascism as monstrous manifestations of a radical nationalism and racism. In this paper, I use the concept of nationalism very broadly to encompass all ideologies based on a fascination with a certain social and or political collective. By fascination, I mean absence of critical and rational examination of the collective superego that each nationalism affirms. In one essay, a famous Serbian author, Danilo Kiš, calls nationalism, quote, a collective and individual paranoia that abandons individual consciousness. It is an ideology of fear, an ideology of the weak. Following Kiš, nationalism is also kitsch. Thus, the concept of nationalism, in my interpretation, embraces various phenomena, various centrisms, including ethnophilitism, or ethnically based nationalism, nationalism as an uncritical glorification of the nation as a modern political construct, state-centered nationalism or statism, very often identical to imperialism, as well as various adorations of tribal identities and tribal belonging. All these phenomena, tribe, ethnicity, nation, or state, are subjected to an uncritical glorification in the nationalistic discourse, which results in the formation of a secular religion of nationalism. In this religion, the social totality or the supreme social authorities, for example states, function as deities. In the name of one of these supreme gods, anything can be justified: the revocation of individual rights and freedoms, torture, elimination of the deity's enemies and heretics, whoever they might be, whether domestic or foreign. The problem is that all these social constructs, such as nations or states, are concepts whose affirmation and glorification primarily serves the dominant order of power, which means the social and political elites. The danger these constructs pose today consists in the fact that they appear as democratic, liberating, and peace-promoting, affirming that way the collective I of the people. These claims provide the elite's legitimacy to act according to the will of the people, defending, as always, national interests. This is why nationalism appears in the same time as the greatest enemy of an authentic patriotism and one of the greatest enemies of a universal humanism. Having said this, I'm not advocating a radical political and social individualism or atomization. I think that patriotism might be a useful concept to describe a positive approach to the collective identity and the sense of belonging. The concept of patriotism, which is very often confused with nationalism, can be a justifiable political and social invention if we define it as working in the interest of all members of a certain society without harming others, rejecting at the same time an uncritical glorification of the collective and a xenophobic resistance to everything that is foreign. The discussion about nationalism, and more specifically about Christian-based nationalism, seems very relevant in our post-1989 world. The fall of the Soviet Union marks a paradigmatic change, but let us not be naive. It was not a victory of democracy over autocracy. Neither were, quote now, John Paul II and Mikhail Gorbachev the prophets sent by Jesus Christ to finish off communism and bring eternal happiness to humankind, as one Croatian Catholic priest claimed in 1990. However, this paradigmatic change did happen, but its meaning was different. The best illustration of the change that I'm aware of offered Alain Finkielkraut, the French author, in his famous book, The Defeat of the Mind. Quote, communism was experiencing an irreversible decline, but what died along with it was not totalitarian thinking, but the idea of a world common to all people. Marx had definitely lost, but to Joseph de Maistre. End of quote. In such a world, all types of nationalism and all protections of national interest serve as an effective technique of indoctrination that poses a huge threat to democracy both in the developed industrial countries and in the developing world. World economic crisis, the crisis of the Eurozone, and the rise of nationalistic right-wing political options in many European countries witness to the scale of the problem we are facing today. When we turn to the problem of nationalism in relation to Christianity and Orthodoxy in particular, the relevancy of the issue seems self-evident. There is a common perception that Orthodoxy is almost inseparably tied with national identities. Who could deny, for example, that Orthodox Church, unlike Western Christianity, is composed of the so-called national churches? It seems enough to point to the Russian, Romanian, or Serbian Orthodox Church to prove that. Are they not all churches of the Russian, Romanian, and Serbian people? Are they not organized along national and ethnic lines? Do they not play a significant role in the formation, preservation, and affirmation of the national identity and state of each particular nation? This understanding of orthodoxy has become quite common both in the countries where orthodoxy is the dominant and traditional faith and outside them, among the general population as well as among many scholars. Nationalism, especially in its ethnophyletic and statist manifestations, is certainly one of the greatest problems that the Orthodox Church faces today. But it is a problem, not a regular state of affairs. It is not something that can be justified or affirmed by Orthodox theology and ecclesiology. The whole tragedy of the present situation, especially in terms of using the national ethnic principles in church organization, becomes apparent in the countries where Orthodoxy is neither traditional nor dominant faith, in Western Europe and North America, where we find, as we already heard, many bishops having their cathedrals in the same city. We've already heard most of the reasons that led to this situation, so I'll skip that part to avoid unnecessary repetition. The problem of nationalism and Christianity is, however, only one aspect of the much broader problem of how to articulate the relations between Christianity and the state, as well as Christianity and society, including the national and ethnical identity. This problem seems to have existed from the earliest periods of Christianity, when Christians had to conceptualize their relation to the Roman Empire both in the pre- and post-Constantine era. This is not a minor problem, since the faith of the Christians and their message to the world is not political or ideological in nature. Christ did not come to establish any specific form of government, since his kingdom is not of this world, but offer a new mode of existence based upon love. Christian faith is first and foremost eschatological in its character. Christians proclaim the kingdom of God which is to come. How can we relate then these eschatological expectations with the concerns of this world? and its preoccupation with earthly power, domination, and wealth. Already from the time when Christianity became an influential and even official ideology of the Roman Empire, and the Church became one of the major social and political institutions, we find attempts to justify certain power structures by specific interpretations of Christianity. The Byzantine Empire is a very instructive case, which is still, in the eyes of many Orthodox people, a prototype of church-state relations. As John McGuckin convincingly shows in his study The Legacy of the 13th Apostle, Origin of the East Christian Conception of Church and State Relation, quote, there never was a single coherent Byzantine political theology. End of quote. The reason for that is that it is, quote again, impossible to elevate a coherent political theology on the basis of biblical evidence. End of quote. During the medieval period, one can find attempts to link very closely church and the state. And on the contrary, we also see attempts to keep them apart as two distinct realities that should not be confused. However, there is sufficient material to show attempts of prominent authors to construct narratives in which orthodoxy and church become useful ideological tools in the hands of the state authorities and for the purpose of imperial ideologies, including military interventions. Probably the most telling expression of the state-church ideology we find in the Emperor Justinian's views. Quote, the priesthood and imperium do not differ very greatly, nor are sacred things so very different from those of public and common interest. End of quote. In the classical Symphonia doctrine, quote again after McGuckin, the king is blessed by God. He ensures
μία μικρή διακοπή. Αυτή τη στιγμή γίνεται η απονομή κάτω λόγω της βροχής σε κλειστό χώρο μερικών κυπέλων και υπάρχει ο ενθουσιασμός αυτός, αλλά αυτή τη στιγμή κλείνουν οι πόρτες και συνεχίζει την εισήγησή του ο Τζάλτο. Τζάλτο, you can go on.
This is what Lacan would say: intrusion of reality of the real into the fictional narrative. In the classical Symphonia doctrine, quote, the king is blessed by God. He ensures the holiness of the priests who in turn pray for the welfare of his kingdom so that his throne shall endure, but only as long as his sons keep the covenant and observe the laws which I have commanded. End of quote. The so-called symphony seems to be so attractive to many authors that it is repeated in the writings of some contemporary Orthodox authors too. An interesting view in this respect expressed Father Mihail Auskul, who explicitly connects imperial policies of the Eastern Roman Empire and the Christian faith. Quote, Christian Romans believed they dwelled in an empire which should encompass the whole world because that empire was founded on a religion intended for all men. As a matter of historical fact, the claims of the empire depended upon the truth of the Christian faith. The loss of that faith meant the loss of any claim to the empire. End of quote. On the other hand, we also witness to the attempt to see in the very position of the emperor a liturgical function. Among contemporary authors, Vladimir Moss went so far in advocating the priestly function of the Orthodox emperor that he even claimed, quote, in fact, from the point of view of the confession of the faith, the emperor has a more prominent and critical position even than the leading bishops. For everyone, both inside and outside the empire, looks to him as representing the official faith of the empire. End of quote. Both of these authors are among those who support the Orthodox monarchy as the Orthodox political model, claiming its sacred character. Since I've written about this problem elsewhere, I'll only repeat here my conclusion that, in my view, there are no valid theological arguments in favor of monarchy as a political model from the Orthodox Christian perspective. In fact, that kind of fascination with absolutism and the empire is related to the power and influence of the political agents, as well as the power and the influence that religious leaders gain within a certain society and state, where orthodoxy becomes more a political ideology and less the authentic Christian faith. In defense of the Byzantine Christianity supported state-based nationalism and imperialism, one can only say that it had been a lesser evil than the later tribal and ethnic nationalisms which were occasionally combined with imperial policies. This combination led to the famous cult of the emperor and empire in Russia, where Tsar, the state, and the nation were seen as metaphysical categories that are intertwined, indivisible from each other. Because religion has always played a significant role in the formation or preservation of particular cultural and ethnic identities and states, it is not very difficult to connect even modern secular nationalisms with Orthodox Christianity. Thus, Orthodoxy has played an important role in re-establishing sovereign states of Christian peoples in the European territories where the Turkish occupation lasted for centuries. Orthodoxy was also an effective means of the creation of modern national identities, national histories, and national myths. However, there is nothing uniquely Orthodox in these developments. Since religion plays an important role in defining a collective identity and culture everywhere, similar processes can be seen outside the Orthodox world as well. Thus, British identity is perceived as naturally linked with the Anglican Church. A footnote, Great Britain remained one of the rare theocracies, officially at least. Catholicism with the self-determination of the Spanish, Polish, or the Croats, while various Protestant churches became the national churches in, for example, Czechoslovakia and the Nordic countries. Particular Christian identity as a means of social and political cohesion has often served as the basis of national identities, even in the cases when particular national or ethnic collectives have obviously been divided among different Christian denominations, as in the case of the Hungarians or the Serbs. Most attempts to justify some form of nationalism or statism, including the militant ones, from a point of view of orthodoxy or broader Christian perspective, are curiously but not surprisingly based on the Old Testament. Probably the best example to demonstrate how particular Christian nationalisms are defended with Old Testament arguments is the concept of Christian nations. In Serbia, that variation is called Svetosavlje, or can be called Svetosavlje as a concept which embraces all Serbian people, and gives to that concept a metaphysical foundation. Christian nation is often identified with the people of God, or the concept of chosen people. In the Orthodox versions, we very often find that the chosen people are understood as the Orthodox nations. According to this logic, the nations or ethnic groups that have accepted Christianity are transformed into Christian nations or Christian people. Thus, the Greeks, Romanians, Russians, or the Serbs would be examples of such Christian nations. The same logic is capable of embracing whole states. Thus, empires can also be perceived as being Christian in their identity. The ruler, the emperor, or the king draws his legitimacy from the Old Testament kings by becoming almost an icon of David or Solomon. Visual representations, for example, in Byzantine Empire and their iconography are very instructive in this respect. The role of the political leader is to be obedient to God, to defend the Orthodox faith, and, if possible, to spread it. In this mode of thinking, as long as the emperor is obedient to God, God will support him as well as the entire empire and the God-loving nation. At work here is a specific pseudo-Christian interpretation of the Old Testament idea of chosen people. It is the idea that one tribe, the biological descendants of a certain Old Testament patriarch, has its own God with which all members of the tribe stand in contractual relation. This is precisely what the story of the chosen people of Israel looks like from the Old Testament perspective. God chooses a righteous man, promising him and his children protection and help in return for his faith and obedience to God's commandments. In this contract or testament, this contract continues to be in force for generations. Newly born members of the tribe inherit the blessings and duties from this testament by their blood ties and or as members of a certain social religious community. The confirmation of their individual belonging to this chosen nation is confirmed also on the individual level by, for example, circumcision. In its social political manifestation, this idea implies a certain form of theocracy in which there is no clear distinction between the secular law, ethics, and religious norms. Religious teachings and imperatives become at the same time laws and social norms. Such a conception is integrative. Its intention is a total symbiosis of the nation, state, and the faith, which produces one unified organism in which it is no longer possible to make a distinction between the profane and sacred spheres. Again, the best illustration I'm aware of is, in the case of Serbia, the concept of Svetosavlje. One must admit that such a model must have had many practical and political advantages. It certainly provides a greater cohesion of a society, makes the overall control over the population easier, and provides a more secure and comfortable position of the ruling class. One should know that this model does not belong only to the past. It is actually very present today, except that the new religion in modern and democratic societies, which calls for the unification and a total integrity of the society, has substituted authority of God by the authority of the state or nation. In the modern period, it is not necessary to be a member of a tribe, and blood ties do not play that prominent role. Political and social nationalism supply the social and political collectives a pseudo-ecclesial and pseudo-sacred character. Thus, social and political collectives pretend to be a human community with metaphysical significance. On the contrary, church and Christian-based nationalisms secularize the church. They substitute her primary concerns that are sacred in the nature with the concerns of this world. And although I'm very much in favor of a secular state and society, I'm not in favor of a secularized church. Although these affirmations of the political and social collectives as religious and metaphysical categories can be justified in the Old Testament perspective, they cannot be transmitted into Christianity and the New Testament revelation. Or, to be more specific, they can be transmitted, but at the cost of losing the authentic Christian faith. In the New Testament perspective, the idea of the people of God, chosen people, or New Israel, has a significantly different meaning. This concept does not point to any tribe or some other ethnic, national, or political community. To the new Israel and chosen people belong all those who are newly born, which means who are baptized and who freely, as individuals, decide to become members of the church. This personal decision makes them capable of entering into a personal relation with God. The famous words by St. Paul that there is neither Jew nor Greek mean not that all these categories disappear in the course of history, but that belonging to a certain race, nation, class, or gender does not have a priori metaphysical significance. None of these categories defines human salvation or membership in the church. In contrast to all social and political necessities that define us and define our existence in this world, Christianity presents a new idea, the idea of freedom and love as the foundation of human existence. There is thus only one way to properly understand the concept of the people of God in the Christian perspective. This people refers to the faithful, which means to the church as the communion of the living ones, those people who already participate in the kingdom of God by their love for God, for each human being, and for the entire God's creation. However, there is a problem with this basic Orthodox approach to the church and the new life in Christ. It cannot be used to support the power structures of the state. It cannot be used in justification of either legal or illegal violence, domination, exploitation, or elimination of other human beings. Therefore, it is not surprising to find attempts throughout the medieval period to understand the Roman Byzantine Empire in relation to the King David or Solomon, and to draw parallels between the Romans and Old Testament Israel. Having all this in mind, we can say that every attempt to look at the Church as an institution whose primary aim is to take care of particular nation, its culture and tradition, or to serve to political aims, has stood in a deep contradiction with Orthodox ecclesiology. Orthodox Christian nationalism, unfortunately, is not limited to the countries where Orthodoxy is a traditional and dominant faith. It stretches beyond those countries where Orthodox Church played a significant role in preservation of local material culture, language, and historical memory after the collapse of medieval kingdoms under the Turkish invasion. We sadly witness today to the rise of nationalism within the Orthodox Church in the New World too, mirroring the wrong practice of identification of orthodoxy with dominant cultures and national identities. Some recent developments within the Orthodox Church of America show a tendency to glorify the United States, its military forces, and its imperialist policies. Support that some of the Orthodox American priests and theologians show for aggressive military campaigns and attempts to justify them with Orthodox theology witness to an unfortunate misunderstanding of Orthodoxy and the Orthodox Church. National identity, to conclude, should not be expelled from the Church, but the Church and our Christian identity cannot be tools in hands of our national identities, our states and our nations. To paraphrase Montesquieu, quote, "If I knew of something that could serve my nation but would ruin another, I would not propose it to my prince, for I'm first a man and only then a Frenchman, because I'm necessarily a man and only accidentally am I French. My true Christian or Orthodox identity is actually primarily my true human identity. If it is not glorified by the holy love for everyone and everything, no particular identity shall inherit the kingdom of God." Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Davor, Mr. Jalto. I think you gave a very clear picture of how much the nationalistic parameter has entered our mentality, and not only in traditionally Orthodox countries, but also beyond these countries. I will immediately give the floor to Mr. Radu Preda, Professor Radu Preda, who is an associate professor at the Babes-Bolyai University in Romania, a director of the Romanian Institute for Inter-Orthodox, Interconfessional, Interreligious Studies, the Inter-Institute. I think you may have already taken some of the informative leaflets outside about Inter. Professor Rada has earned his doctorate degree in 2002, and he has also studied in Thessaloniki, in Paris, France, and Stuttgart, Germany. He has been invited to lecture in various university faculties in Europe, such as Vienna and Hanover. He has extensively published more than 300 articles in various international journals. He has written 5 books and contributed in many collective volumes. He will speak in French, so we will have interpretation in Greek on channel 1 and interpretation in English on channel 2. We'll switch channels in a minute. The title of his presentation is Fundamentalism and Social Anachronism. You have the floor, Mr. Preda.
Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ, κύριε Πρόεδρε. Je vais se très cher ami, pour ne pas tomber dans le nationalisme anglophone ou grécophone, j'ai décidé de parler en français. Et comme toutes les vraies bonnes choses, mon intervention a lieu à la fin d'une réunion très riche en idées et visions. Avant tout, comme co-organisateur, je voudrais faire quelques précisions découlant de l'expérience de la conférence de Volos sur la synthèse néopatristique. Toutefois, les réactions de quelques voix de la théologie grecque, mais pas seulement, par rapport à notre démarche d'il y a 2 ans, ont montré au moins 2 aspects importants pour une vie ecclésiale saine. Tout d'abord, la difficulté d'un dialogue sincère et nuancé sur certaines questions longtemps considérées comme trop intangibles. Pour certains, il ne s'agit pas d'un simple refus du dialogue, mais plutôt d'un manque d'exercice terminologique. Plus précisément, avant de se proposer de comprendre notre démarche, plusieurs se sont précipités de critiquer la formule théologie post-patristique en dénonçant la présumée trahison des saints-pères. Plutôt que de s'interroger sur le sens réel de la formule telle qu'elle apparaît dans des diverses interventions du colloque, les auto-intitulés défenseurs de l'orthodoxie n'ont pas tardé à condamner. D'une invitation à réflexion et au dialogue, la formule la théologie post-patristique s'est rapidement transformée en une insulte, un slogan négatif. Pour autant que je l'ai pouvais, j'ai suivi des clouches l'échange des répliques, des articles, l'affichage électronique sur l'Internet, de quelques textes, tous provenant de l'espace de la théologie grecque, et j'ai constaté tout simplement que dans de telles conditions de simplification massive des opinions, le dialogue est tout à fait impossible. Pour ceux qui se considèrent les possesseurs de l'orthodoxie et ses gardiens incorruptibles, les autres qui ont un autre avis sont inévitablement des relativistes, des modernistes, des syncrétistes, des occidentalisés, vendus, etc. En bref, des hérétiques. Toute cette simplification produit une caricature de l'interlocuteur. Au lieu de commenter ponctuellement les affirmations faites au symposium de Volos, les préopinants se sont affrontés avec leur propre image sur ce symposium. Comme Don Quichotte, ils ont lutté contre les moulins à vent avec la caricature ou les cauchemars que seule une théologie post-patristique peut produire. Deuxièmement, pour entendre le thème du symposium de cette année, il ne m'est pas difficile de m'imaginer la vague d'indignation de ceux qui, sans faire aussi cette fois un minimum effort de comprendre, vont condamner la globalisation, les conspirations universelles et d'autres aussi, toutes soutenues, non, c'est évident, par les théologiens présents à Volos. Après les saints-pères, qu'ils connaissent seulement d'une manière superficielle, des éditions critiques des textes patristiques sont réalisées encore surtout par des autres hétérodoxes, c'est le paradoxe académique de notre orthodoxie moderne, les mêmes gardiens de la foi ont la nation comme support ou fondement identitaire. Pris ensemble, la théologie post-patristique et maintenant est là, l'ecclésiologie post-nationale, voici les 2 graves attentats à l'adresse de l'identité du grec orthodoxe, mais aussi du russe ou du roumain. C'est pourquoi en anticipant, c'est la qualité génuine de la stupidité, elle peut être anticipée. Alors, anticipant, je voudrais lancer dès le début un appel à l'honnêteté. Il n'est pas correct de critiquer avant de comprendre. Il n'est pas honnête à juger a priori l'autre. Il n'est pas juste d'exagérer les détails et d'ignorer l'ensemble. Il n'est pas correct, enfin, de mettre la foi de l'autre en question tout simplement parce qu'il a d'autres opinions, d'autres lectures et a tout un autre horizon de langage. En ce qui me concerne, personnellement, je suis tout à fait compréhensive à l'égard de la volonté que je considère sincère de certains de ne pas voir l'orthodoxie en ensemble engagée dans un processus d'adaptation à l'époque, au zeitgeist, par dilution de ses contenus accumulés et gardés par la tradition. Je ne suis pas l'adepte d'une modernisation à tout prix. Je ne peux pas être d'accord avec l'accusation que l'orthodoxie serait vieille fermée en elle-même, négationniste et isolationniste. Non, je ne peux pas être d'accord avec cette caricature sur ma Église. Mais en réponse, je crois que l'orthodoxie peut dire quelque chose à l'homme d'aujourd'hui, qu'elle peut entrer en dialogue sur des grands thèmes de notre temps, qu'elle a la capacité et le discernement de choisir ce qui est utile des défis et des réalisations de la modernité, qu'elle est inspirée par le Saint-Esprit, un motif pour ne pas prendre de fausses précautions. Je crois fermement que la voie médiane est possible entre la défense des types radicaux, l'orthodoxie ou la mort, et la prétention d'un Vatican II à l'oriental. Or, ce que nous essayons de faire, les facultés, les départements théologiques et les centres de recherche réunis autour de l'Académie de Wolu, est juste de trouver cette voie. Comment? Par un dialogue honnête, grâce à un débat constructif, par l'ouverture envers des critiques fondées, par la reconnaissance de certains déficits et par la revisite créative et fertile des sources de l'Église. Enfin, un facteur très important de cette démarche est la capacité de distinguer entre l'essentiel, le dogmatique et le secondaire, en raison de l'expérience en et par l'histoire de l'Église. Or, la manière dans laquelle s'est articulée pendant les derniers siècles la relation entre l'orthodoxie et la nation représente une telle question pas seulement dogmatique, c'est-à-dire qui est liée à ce que dans la littérature de spécialité s'appelle depuis beaucoup d'années déjà le facteur non théologique. Ma intervention inclut dans le titre les 3 sous-thèmes, traités du point de vue social-théologique. Le nationalisme religieux, le fondamentalisme et l'anachronisme. Alors, entre le nationalisme religieux et la religion nationalisée. Comme on a souligné au cours des interventions antérieures, le défi par excellence de l'orthodoxie dans la modernité est de trouver un équilibre entre les données de la foi et celles de l'histoire, entre l'universel et le local, entre ce qui est valable à tout moment et n'importe où, et les conditionnements d'un lieu et ou dans certains peuples. Contrairement à ceux qui voient à cet égard un problème plutôt ou exclusivement orthodoxe, il n'est pas moins présent dans la théologie catholique et protestante. Plus précisément, l'inculturation de l'Évangile intéressait la mission des ordres catholiques dans les nouveaux territoires visés, depuis celui de l'Amérique latine et celui de l'Afrique subsaharienne et jusqu'en Chine. La question peut sembler simple. Comment peut être rendue accessible la révélation biblique enveloppée, comme nous le savons, dans des données linguistiques, mentales, culturelles et ethniques de ces intermédiaires, de sorte à être compris par des gens appartenant à des milieux culturels, ethniques, mentaux et linguistiques totalement différents. Pour donner un exemple très concret, alors que dans les pays à climat continental, qui connaissent l'alternance des 4 saisons, il est naturel que le Noël devrait être au centre des soi-disant fêtes d'hiver, et que la résurrection du Seigneur représente la renaissance de la nature et le commencement d'un nouveau cycle de vie sur la terre. On ne peut pas dire la même chose en ce qui concerne l'Afrique, et plus généralement l'hémisphère du Sud, comme par exemple l'Australie. De même, toujours de manière exemplaire, on ne peut pas présenter les profils anthropologiques de l'Asie mineure, les lieux de l'incarnation historique du Christ dans l'histoire, comme normatifs et uniques. C'est pourquoi il y a des représentations iconographiques d'un Christ noir, chinois ou latino-américain. Enfin, dans le même sens d'une adaptation inévitable, le texte biblique ne peut pas s'écouter la même partout. Il y a des différences entre la structure grammaticale des langues sémitiques et les autres langues, tout aussi comme des langues ont une richesse inégale des termes et expressions. Toutes ces observations, que je les reconnais, ne dépassent pas le cadre des constatations de bon sens, nous obligent à penser de manière nuancée les rapports entre l'universel et le local. Voilà pourquoi, afin de clarifier de quelque sorte les choses, j'ai choisi de distinguer entre le nationalisme religieux et la religion nationalisée, entre guillemets. Dans cette perspective, le nationalisme religieux est l'expression du détournement de la religion en général, de son rôle genuin et l'attachement des valeurs qui ne sont pas du tout religieuses ou même qui sont antireligieuses par leur jeunesse. En d'autres termes, un nationaliste religieux mettra toujours au premier plan la nation et seulement secondairement ou sur un autre plan la religion. il usera de cette dernière pour la cause de la première. Un tel renversement des plans a déterminé Olivier Clément, en se référant à l'affrontement de l'ex-Yougoslavie et aux guerres qu'il a provoquées, de parler du nationalisme religieux des dirigeants serbes, la majorité d'entre eux d'extraction communiste, en les nommant orthodoxes athées. C'est-à-dire, sans questionner antérieurement leur propre relation avec Dieu, ils ont pris l'Église en tant que garante des sources de la légitimité, en tant que garante et source de la légitimité de leur lutte raciste. On pourrait dire en passant qu'il s'est passé quelque chose de semblable avec le côté kosovar ou bosniaque musulman ou avec le côté croate catholique, un argument supplémentaire pour traiter cette question inclusivement du point de vue interconfessionnel et interreligieux. Maintenant, la question qu'on met naturellement serait: le rencontre entre la nation, telle qu'elle est définie par la modernité, et la religion, est-elle vouée à l'échec fatal du nationalisme religieux? Pour sauver l'universalité de la religion, est-il nécessaire de nier le rôle des nations? Ou, symétriquement, pour souligner l'importance d'une nation, est-il nécessaire de sacrifier la religion, de l'instrumentaliser par sa réduction en simple idéologie? Eh bien, je pense que non. Si le nationalisme religieux représente un renversement majeur du rapport entre nation et religion, la première étant plus importante que la seconde, dans le cas de la religion nationalisée, on peut parler de sa capacité de s'adapter à une certaine culture, d'avoir un rapport plus intime avec des sujets historiques qui la vivent. Soyons clairs, nous ne pouvons pas passer d'un extrême à l'autre, du nationalisme religieux à la religion atemporelle et proprement dit utopique, c'est-à-dire sans aucune référence géographique. Religion de l'incarnation, le christianisme se manifeste dans ses œuvres corporelles, c'est-à-dire avec des connotations tout à fait concrètes au niveau de la géographie, de la langue, de la mentalité, etc. Avec cela, je pense que nous sommes tous d'accord. La difficulté survient au moment où on change de direction. Ce n'est pas la même situation si une nation utilise la religion ou si la religion s'inscrit dans les données culturelles d'une nation. Dans le premier cas, il s'agit de l'instrumentalisation de la religion. Dans le second, d'une traduction locale d'une vérité qui demeure universelle, mais qui, tout en restant alors universelle, n'exclut pas d'expression fortement contingente. En d'autres termes, si par l'instrumentalisation nationaliste de la religion, on ignore l'instance critique de la universalité de la religion en tant que telle, par l'inculturation ou la nationalisation telle qu'elle était définie de la religion est maintenu un permanent rapport de contrôle avec son propre universalité. Plus précisément, si pour un nationaliste religieux est naturel de vouloir la mort ou la disparition de celui qu'il considère l'ennemi, pour un homme religieux avec une culture nationale, l'universalité de la vérité religieuse sur l'homme en général, comme créature, comme création de Dieu, les conflits s'aimaient de manière tout à fait différente. La seconde section. Le fondamentalisme ou la fin de la logique. Le nationalisme religieux est une expression de l'impuissance logique d'intégrer à la fois le local et l'universel. Le fondamentalisme religieux est le prolongement de cette crise et il représente en fait la fin de toute logique. En d'autres termes, le fondamentalisme traduit la manque d'arguments, ou mieux dit, il essaie par la violence de rétablir un rapport impossible à refaire par des arguments de la logique. Il n'est donc pas du tout un hasard si la majorité des fondamentalistes, indépendamment de la religion de laquelle ils se revendiquent, tombent dans un fanatisme spécifique qui s'encadre dans des données cliniques des personnes souffrant de graves problèmes d'équilibre mental. Caricature de la vocation religieuse en tant que telle, le fondamentalisme est un enthousiasme mal placé qui n'a pas été assimilé par la voie de la réflexion, de la pensée, mais qui a été alimenté exclusivement au niveau des impulsions du moment, de l'émotion. En lecture socio-théologique, le fondamentalisme religieux révèle exactement le manque de fondements, de connaissances, de profondeur. En d'autres termes, le fondamentalisme religieux est en fait un substitut de la religion proprement dite. de la sorte que le nationalisme est un substitut de la loyauté envers la communauté dont on fait partie. Contrairement à ce que les fondamentalistes croient sur eux-mêmes, le fondamentalisme comme tel exprime presque sans exception un trop peu qui se dissimule sous un trop. La violence est dans ces cas, ultima ratio, celle qui est utilisée en absence totale d'autres arguments et de perspectives. Malheureusement, outre le nationalisme, le fondamentalisme est également un défi permanent à l'adresse de l'orthodoxie actuelle. Soyons clairs, il ne s'agit pas ici d'une éventuelle condamnation de ceux qui sont fermes sur leur position, mais je vise une certaine forme de violence, heureusement seulement au niveau du langage, incompatible avec la dimension apologétique et missionnaire de notre Église. Le fondamentalisme, sous toute forme, exige de ceux de notre foi ou opinion à se dédire. Il est une menace, un acte de forcer la conscience, c'est-à-dire quelque chose de très très éloigné du modèle de la païdéade des pères de l'Église, en mesure à leur temps de convertir les esprits et les âmes de leurs contemporains. Le caractère violent du fondamentalisme religieux provient de ces manques de nuances, de l'intelligence créative capable de comprendre en profondeur. C'est pourquoi si le nationalisme religieux est un mauvais service à la nation elle-même, en l'absence de la censure utile de l'universalité, d'où la tendance de se croire l'ombilic du monde, le fondamentalisme religieux est un mauvais service à la pensée religieuse, beaucoup plus articulée et plus flexible que la présence qui, à eux seuls, se déclarent ses défenseurs. Après tout, le fondamentalisme religieux pourrait être comparé, le fondamentaliste religieux, pourrait être comparé avec un bibliothécaire analphabète, incapable alors d'apprécier les véritables trésors qu'il garde et de les faire connaître par les autres. Enfin, l'anachronisme social ou les fausses réponses à des interrogations vraies. Le nationalisme et le fondamentalisme ont en commun pas seulement le réductionnisme que j'ai déjà mentionné, mais surtout les fausses réponses données à des interrogations vraies. Or, en plein processus de la globalisation, répondre aux interrogations sur l'identité par encourager l'isolement est un exemple d'une fausse réponse à une vraie interrogation. Tout d'abord, l'anachronisme social ne met pas en relation le parcours historique avec la démarche intellectuelle, voire théologique. De cette manière, il est possible de vivre au XXe siècle, mais de se guider d'après des cartes mentales et des repères culturels qui tiennent seulement du Byzance ou d'autres époques au libre choix. Si dans la littérature ou dans l'art, le passéisme peut être une décision esthétique, en théologie, les choses sont plus compliquées. Il est vrai que, ancien comme elle est, la révélation en tant que telle semble être un repère situé au-delà de notre temps historique. La différence entre l'ancienneté de la révélation et le passéisme historique n'est pas moins évidente. Alors que la révélation est constamment mise à jour par la vie liturgique, le Christ eucharistique prenant la place du Christ historique, et par l'exégèse, y compris dans sa dimension catéchétique s'ignorée dans notre pastoral actuel, le passéisme est en état de congélation de notre cheminement historique. Si l'ancienneté de la révélation est un prédicat de son authenticité et qualité, la fixation dans le temps du passéisme est l'indice d'une pathologie de la pensée. La constatation de ce type de rapport muséal à la tradition a été le point de départ dans la démarche qu'entreprit il y a 2 ans en ce qui concerne la théologie post-patristique. En reprenant en bref l'argumentation, on ne peut pas cultiver en termes idolâtres des repères qui nous ne sont pas en mesure de les faire vivre, fertiles pour l'Église d'aujourd'hui. L'appel au Père reste considérablement sans écho du moment où nous ne devenons pas les intermédiaires fidèles et créateurs entre leur théologie et l'horizon actuel de compréhension. La référence stérile au Père trahit finalement un double échec. Le malentendu de l'éthos patristique, caractérisé par le dialogue permanent avec le monde, et le mépris pour le présent, réduit exclusivement à la somme de ses défauts, le modernisme, le sécularisme, le consumérisme et tous les ismes imaginables. Deuxièmement, l'anachronisme social, en ratant la rencontre créative entre le passé et le présent, échoue systématiquement leur rencontre en préparation avec l'avenir. Il n'est donc pas du tout surprenant que la plupart des anachroniques de toutes sortes sont prédisposés à un discours apocalyptique. Par manque d'arguments et du courage de la foi, ils caricaturent l'attente eschatologique par des projections catastrophiques dignes des scénarios cinématographiques. On peut même observer une certaine satisfaction alimentée par la conviction que finalement, ce sont seulement eux qui auront raison. Un topos répandu parmi les soutenants de l'anachronisme, généralement les mêmes avec la vision fondamentaliste, et le regret par rapport à un temps d'or de l'Église placée au IVe siècle, et la tristesse par rapport au temps corrompu d'aujourd'hui. On ignore en ces cas consciemment la critique que les pères eux-mêmes faisaient à l'adresse de l'histoire et de leurs contemporains. Le fait de se rapporter de façon mythologique au passé de l'Église paralyse enfin la capacité de voir son œuvre actuelle et prochaine. Toujours en termes d'une comparaison métaphorique, l'anachronique est semblable à un astronome qui fixe le ciel d'un seul jour, sans le préoccuper la dynamique des étoiles. Obsessif, il examine un seul jour de la vie de l'univers en ratant le spectacle formidable que le ciel offre chaque jour. Comme conclusion, on pourrait mettre une question pas du tout rhétorique. Pour être orthodoxe, est-ce qu'il est nécessaire d'être nationaliste, fondamentaliste ou anachronique? Je ne crois pas. Pourquoi? Parce que le nationalisme, le fondamentalisme et l'anachronisme ensemble ne donnent pas comme résultat l'orthodoxie. C'est-à-dire nous n'avons pas affaire avec une équation réversible. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Preda. Because very briefly and concisely, you finished even 5 minutes before the end we were expecting. You gave us an idea of how unnecessary is to enter this not fruitful dialogue, and it was one of the few presentations that discussed the issue of violence, and violence and human rights have been one of the topics on which we haven't very much elaborated during this conference. I will try to stick to the timetable, to the program, and during the discussion. But before that, I would like to ask the director of the Academy, since we are organizing many different events, and these events will need to end up with a publication, I would like to invite him to present us the latest publication of as a group that started its work from here, from the Academy. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We should have done that yesterday, but anyway. We are pleased to inform you, which is something we already disseminated through our email list. I would like to inform you that in cooperation with the World Council of Churches, the Wolu Theological Academy has created a collection trying to promote Orthodox theology. We are publishing in English. The title is Doxa Praxis, Exploring Orthodox Theology. I am the editor of this collection. And in the editorial board, we have His Eminence, the Metropolitan of Pergamos, Mr. Ioannis, the Patriarch Father Klapsis, Ms. Kamara Gritsoulice, the Orthodox member of the Pistis and Taxis Committee of the World Council of Churches, the Dean of the St. Andrew's Institute of Moscow, Ms. Angeliki Zyaka from the University of Thessaloniki, Mr. Putenev, an associate professor from the St. Vladimir University seminar, Mr. Preda, the director of the Inter-Institute, Julia Bredovic from Serbia, a member also of the European Council of Churches, and Katerina Akrivou, who is working with our academy and also a PhD student of the High School of Ecumenics. This is the first volume by Kallistos's, His Eminence Kallistos's Ware, entitled Orthodox in the 20th Century. It is the speech he gave in 2004 in our academy. Most of you already know that this has been published in Greek since 2005 by Edictos publishers. We have in this book we have a new preface and an index. And this is the second volume by myself, entitled Orthodoxy and Political Theology, based on two texts that I had written in Greek. Now I have unified them and published them together. We would like to see this collection having volumes of the proceedings of the conferences we are organizing, but also books from other people who are working with us. We would like to publish the third volume by the end of this year, and that will be the Greek translation of Orthodox theology and eschatology. We hope we will be able to publish it by the end of the year. It is an important reference book which will be published both in Greek and English. I would very much like to thank everyone present from the editorial board, His Eminence of Pergamos, Father Klapsis, Mr. Bodov, Mr. Preda, and anyone else present from the editorial board, and of course all the others. And I would also like to thank all of you for supporting our academy all these years. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and let's go on with the discussion. Let me remind that Mr. Kalaitzidis has written a book in English which is an introductory text of a collection which is very interesting to us in Greece, about the patristic theology and the ambiguousness of modernity, already published by Indictos. I will immediately give the floor to anyone who wishes to make a comment or a question. Mr. Paul Meindorf first, and then πρώτα ο κύριος Meindorf και μετά εσείς.
Thank you very much for two absolutely wonderful and stimulating presentations. We've raised, especially in this session, the whole question of Orthodox identity in various settings. And I would just like to add to that a reality that exists, I think, both in the traditionally Orthodox countries and in the diaspora, is that people of all those stripes tend to reduce orthodoxy to kind of very simple answers, but also, especially in diaspora, I mean, what does it mean to be Greek, third generation or diaspora in America, or Russian or Serbian? I mean, very often that identity is reduced to kind of very superficial externals. For Greeks, it's souvlaki. For Russians, it's pirogi, which is actually not Russian, but Polish or Ukrainian, and pronounced that way. And it becomes kind of very, very superficial. And it creates a great amount of tension in the churches, because especially in America, but also in France and elsewhere, we have a ever-growing number of converts who enter the Orthodox Church knowing far more about the Orthodox Church than the so-called cradle Orthodox, and who themselves bring their own baggage with them, whatever tradition they come from. So it creates a real kind of struggle for kind of claiming orthodoxy. And I think it's equally true, I mean, in the former communist countries, where in fact the vast majority of your believers are converts. I mean, they grew up in an atheist state and are taking on orthodoxy. So in some ways there are real similarities between the two. But I would just ask you to comment on that, because I think it might help to fill out maybe some of the very useful categories that you have developed here, but it maybe need to be nuanced even more to fit the actual realities of our church today. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, both for your comment and the question you posed to both presenters. Michael.
Again, thank you both for interesting and helpful contributions. I'm wondering whether Dr. Jalto can elaborate and think with me. I think there's some traction to help answer a question that I've had throughout the conference, and that's the utility of the distinction between patriotism and nationalism. It seems fairly self-evident to me that patriotism is what I like and nationalism is what someone else likes. And in trying to push against that a little bit, I think some of your remarks, ironically or otherwise, give some illustration about the realism of eschatology properly construed. As a church with a high view of sacrament, the idea that it's in Eucharist and baptism that the ongoing creation of a new people, a prototype of the kingdom of God, demonstrating that human community can be built on mutuality and forgiveness rather than on violence and exclusion. One way to operationalize for the church this distinction between a properly chastened or modest notion of love of place and love of community compared to the more pernicious ones are precisely those claims that ask us to violate the solidarity of the church as formed in Eucharist and formed in baptism. And in that sense, and maybe you can help me think here, whether that involves making strange things that we are already too comfortable with, that we can think about Orthodox Russians going to war against Orthodox Georgians and not see that as a sacramental scandal, as a corruption of Eucharist, or Catholic Hutu killing Catholic Tutu, and we call that tribalism rather than sort of a travesty of baptism. So in terms of trying to distinguish these relatively benign and relatively pernicious notions of multiple identity, I'm as a modest operationalization, I'm wondering if you might be able to think through what that means in terms of the claims of states or nations or empires that ask us to render the body of Christ, whether that's perhaps a modest step forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We thank the professor from Chicago who learned about this conference and wanted to attend. So we thank him very much and for his comments and for his questions. He has really expanded the problem of violence and the problem of patriotism. These are all issues that we have to consider. I don't see any other question. So at this stage, let me give the floor to the two speakers. Maybe we can have a few more questions later.
Thank you for both comments and questions. First to this comment and observation about the Christian identity in the New World and in traditional Christian countries. Well, I think that that questions really involves this fundamental issue we are dealing with here these days, and that's this question of, we heard today great presentations about the problem of multiple jurisdictions and so on, and I think this the answer to the question about Christian identity, what constitutes my Christian identity when I'm outside traditional culture, which somehow embraces this Christian identity, like in the New World. The answer to that question is the answer to the question why we still tolerate multiple jurisdictions. We've just discussed that question before this session, and I think the reason why, we all know where the problem is. We heard that today a couple of times. We already have some possible solutions, but nobody does anything. We do here, but actually the reason why nothing moves or not as much as it could into the right direction, I think, is because everybody is happy with the present situation, except a couple of us enthusiasts here, who don't matter, except His Eminence and a couple of other people who can actually influence some decisions. And why everybody is happy is because the present situation fulfills what it should fulfill. Church hierarchy in both USA and domestic churches is quite happy, and they get money, from the states, from their parishes, dioceses. It's nice. People there go to the church, I think, most of them for totally wrong reasons, because these churches, Orthodox churches, are like mostly national clubs. I mean, they go there to listen to the music and eat some Serbian or Russian meals and so on. And even I met people who are resolute about not going to the church anymore if they start, for example, serving in English. So and they even don't understand Serbian. Which shows the reason why are they in the church. So I think the reason, the situation we have is actually the situation most of the people who claim they are in the church and they are Orthodox Christians is find quite satisfactory. And as long as that's the case, both from the top of the church and the bottom of the church, the situation will not change. Actually, the only way to do something is what we are doing here now. And as to the second question about patriotism and nationalism and possible distinction and the role of violence and so on, well, I think, and that's one of the points in my paper, I didn't have time to comment more in detail. I think that the basic problem in all this discussion, why we deal always with these issues of nationalism, state, how to articulate faith, and the relations between Christianity and state and so on, comes from our inability of most Christian thinkers to think of these categories in functional and practical way rather than in metaphysical one. States and nations are constructs, social constructs. There is nothing, and there shouldn't be anything metaphysical about them. So why should we give them metaphysical background or metaphysical foundations instead of they just serve their purpose now and in a bad way. So my position is basically, I call it Christian anarchism. I think anarchism is the only logical Christian Orthodox social and political doctrine. It's not ideal. Ideal is only the kingdom of God, but it is the only thing what we could implement today to satisfy our vision of human being. And that's what we are not doing. We are not doing that because we are mostly focused on, as I said, power, wealth, domination, these kind of things that shape the entire history. And so that's I think the answer to the question how it's possible that Orthodox people fight among each other. One Orthodox country goes against another Orthodox country. Well, it's possible because countries cannot be Orthodox. Very simple. Their states are violent agents, and they are violent always internally or externally. So there is nothing Orthodox about that, and so Russia can fight against other state which is dominantly Orthodox, but I don't see any contradiction in that. Where what I find very dangerous is when some theologians and priests, and that is a kind of became mainstream, try to justify these actions backing in with Orthodox theology. I mean, it's a scandal. We have that in a couple of examples in the United States, quite awful attempts to justify like imperial policies with Orthodox theology. I would say even insane. We've seen that in Russia, in everywhere else, and I think that's the target we should orient to our discussion and potential solution.
Thank you. Η επόμενη απάντηση από τον Professor Radu θα είναι στα γαλλικά, επομένως ετοιμαστείτε.
C'est pas une réponse, c'est juste un commentaire produit par le commentaire de Paul. Oui, il s'agit finalement de la question comment est-ce qu'on définit sa propre identité. Et je peux vous raconter une très belle histoire que je l'ai vécue personnellement. C'est pas seulement les chrétiens orthodoxes qui ont un problème avec leur propre identité réduite à des éléments extérieurs, mais c'est l'orthodoxie entière qui a un problème avec sa propre identité dans le monde si on réduit sa identité à des questions seulement culturelles ou contingentes. Je me souviens très bien quand j'étais pour la première fois en France, au début des années 90, j'étais très jeune. J'ai fait l'autostop pour aller de Lyon à Paris. Et comme d'habitude, on parle avec le chauffeur. Vous venez d'où? Bon, de Roumanie. Ah, Ceausescu, le communisme. Les enfants sans abri, toutes les histoires. C'était un moment dans lequel la Roumanie avait une très bonne image à l'étranger, surtout en France. La francophonie fonctionnait. Bon, et à un moment donné est venue, comme d'habitude, la question, et vous êtes de quelle religion? J'ai demandé comme curieux, comme ça, et c'était le chauffeur avec sa femme, et lui m'a répondu très, très vite et un peu dérangé. Bon, nous sommes des catholiques, mais pas pratiquants. Pour moi, c'était un choc. Alors, dire que tu es catholique mais que tu pratiques pas, c'était pour moi, et c'est resté comme ça, une contradiction en termes. C'est d'une manière élégante formulée, c'est un paradoxe. Sinon, même une schizophrénie. Tu peux pas dire que tu es orthodoxe mais tu pratiques pas. Ça veut dire que tu es pas orthodoxe, non? Si tu pratiques pas. La même logique, je l'appliquais dans ces cas. Bon, mais l'histoire continue. Et vous? Et je dis avec toute ma fierté, moi je suis orthodoxe. Orthodoxe. Et j'étais choqué par son geste de choquesse et lui a observé que j'étais un peu embarrassé pourquoi il a réagi comme ça. Il m'a dit, mais quand même, vous aurez un très bon temps à Paris comme orthodoxe. Moi, cette fois, j'étais un peu choqué. Mais pourquoi? Mais vous savez pas? Non. Il y a encore beaucoup de synagogues. Et j'ai dû expliquer qu'il ne s'agit pas de l'orthodoxie des Juifs, qu'il s'agit de l'orthodoxie chrétienne. Et à un moment donné, la femme a dit « Ah, je sais maintenant, je sais, vous êtes grec orthodoxe. » Non, moi je suis de la Roumanie. Après quelques minutes, le mari, le plus intelligent, « Ah, je sais, vous êtes russe orthodoxe. N'est-ce pas, c'est ça? » Non, c'est pas ça. Moi, je suis roumain. Et bon, j'ai fait un petit cours d'introduction dans l'orthodoxie, comme ça. Mais pourquoi je vous raconter cette histoire? Parce qu'elle montre très bien comment toutes les identités, toutes les pseudo-identités nationales, culturelles, linguistiques comme ça, finissent par anéantir l'identité en telle identité de l'orthodoxie entière. Et ça peut sonner d'une manière grave, mais c'est justement une question qui, pour nous, comme théologiens orthodoxes, doit nous interroger d'une manière plus forte, surtout dans un monde qui est plus en plus globalisé, qui se trouve dans une dynamique et dans une rapidité d'échange des personnes et des informations.
Merci beaucoup. Θα έλεγα δεν βλέπω. Να κλείσω.
So we have two more questions, Father Emmanuel. I will give you some information about the reality in the United States and changes that are taking place. In 2008, the For Charitable Foundation conducted a study on the religions in the United States. 1% of Americans are Orthodox Christians. They are from the middle and upper class, but through the questions we can see that an Orthodox Christian morale of these Christians is not so much forged by the church, it is rather forged by the environment in the United States. 71% of these Orthodox said that they have a strong faith in God. Only 56% say that this is necessary for their everyday life. 60% said that they pray, and the rest said that they practice that very infrequently. Only 33% believe that the gospel is not the true word of God. 68% believe that there are more than one interpretations of the Bible. There are the minority, those who believe that there is only one interpretation. Now, when it comes to salvation, 70% of Orthodox people say that many different religions can lead to eternal life, and only 20% believe that salvation is something given only by the Orthodox Church. 48% of the Orthodox believe that the government should foster moral values in the society. But the majority believes that the government, 60% believe that there is a need for the state to protect with law the environment. However, 30% believe that this is not necessary. When it comes to homosexuality, 48% of Orthodox believe that this should be accepted, whereas 30% believe that the state should not condone the practice of homosexuality. When it comes to abortion, 24% of the Orthodox say that abortion should be legalized in all circumstances, when the average in the United States is 18%. 20% say that they should be legal in all cases, and the rest say that they should be legal in some cases. So, why am I giving you all these figures? Because there are many different interpretations about how the identity of the Orthodox diaspora creates its identity. And we say that it is necessary for Orthodox theology to forge not only the morale of the church, but also of the congregation. What we see from these statistics is that the Orthodox, not only the Greek Orthodox, but all Orthodox in the United States, have created their political, social, and moral identity more from the environment of the United States, much more rather than from their Orthodox faith. And this is food for thought. How can we affect this identity, the identity of the congregation, not of the administrative structures of the church? The the identity, the moral values of the people. And it would be interesting to see an objective study carried out in all Orthodox countries with the same questions. And the reason I'm saying all that is to see that what we are discussing is the problem is not that they're not followed by the official church. The problem is much more that the common people, the congregation, are becoming less and less Orthodox. They are becoming more and more American, for example. They have breached the link between their religious identity and the rest of their identity. And there is no room for caricature or generalization in dealing with this problem, I think. And finally, regarding Orthodox theologians in the United States, which might have helped in holy wars, etc., their Orthodox theology is free. There is a free dialogue. There was publications, for example, regarding the views of Alexander Webster, but I wouldn't say that these views are the views of the Orthodox Church of America. These are individual personal views who have been very vocal but still do not express the views of all of us. Thank you, Father Emmanuel. I think this is the role of discussion, is to point us towards directions that we may have not examined very much during the conference and the presentations. Now, I'm asking, are there any other brief questions? We still have 5 minutes in our disposal. I see someone raising their hand. All the questions will be taken together. Okay, so this is the last one. I wanted to say that from before, but after listening to all that, my impression was amplified from what Father Klapsi said. Isn't everything a matter of education? I mean, these priests that went to these councils have not received a proper education, religious education, because they see their own personal promotion and personal interests. They put them as they see them as more important than the teaching of Christ. They are so much influenced by their environment, by what they've heard, and they don't properly fulfill their roles as members of the clergy. They are not operating in the spirit of Christ, because when you're addressing a council in your capacity as speaking in the name of Christ, your first priority is to keep everyone united in the spirit of Christ, in the midst of the chair. The chair asked to make the question more brief and precise, and refrain from criticizing in general all. So what the speaker says, is it perhaps a lack of education of catechesis, and which is not forming its own priests and clergy in the especially if we compare it to the structures of the states who are creating these ideologies? Thank you for your comment. Δεν νομίζω ότι θα βρούμε απάντηση σε αυτό. Έχουμε μόνο 2 λεπτά στη διάθεσή μας. Και σας...
Yes, it's going to be a very brief comment. It's just to share an image with you. as I've been listening to all the speakers, I have, I think, a visual imagination, and some things have occurred to me about the relationship of church and state. One of them is, I was wondering how useful it is to use the image of psychological codependence to describe what I think we've now concluded really is the potentially very destructive relationship of church and nation. In other words, a codependence of partners. It's drawn from psychology. And both partners in that relationship are ill and damaged. So it seems to me that for the hierarchs, it is very, very urgent that they begin to move on this question. The other image that comes to my mind is from Scripture, of course, is the Lord's own image of the two blind men who both fall into the pit together. And until this question is dealt with, really, in Orthodoxy, and of course also in the West, in the Catholic Church too, we run a very great danger of trading away the faith and betraying our mission. That's all I wanted to say. And when I wrote this down, I also showed it to Michael sitting alongside me, and he wrote this. I hope he doesn't mind me telling you, just something to light to and humorous to finish on, but it's got a very sharp point to it. He wrote, in the 1960s, there was a radical slogan in the United States, and the radical slogan was this: "It is no sign of health to be well adjusted in a sick society."
Ευχαριστούμε, νομίζω.
Thank you very much for these observations. I think the brothers from Chicago and Australia made very interesting observations. This concludes our last session for this night of this very interesting, in fact, conference. We are having the last session tomorrow at 11:30. Of course, before that, we will have a liturgy at the Church of the Analypsy, but before we leave this venue, we will go down for the supper. So we'll go down to the buses. So this is the end of this session. Thanks to all the speakers and thanks to all the participants.